at ADP List. So the agenda for today's meeting is that we will, so we are going through the intro, and then right after this intro, we'll be taking a picture because we all are fresh at the start of the session. And right after that photo, we will jump on to the awesome presentations which have been prepared by our speakers. And that will roughly take about 30 to 35 minutes. And then at the end, we have an awesome 15 to 20 minutes dedicated to Q&A. So great to meet you all. We have these awesome speakers on stage with me. So first is Ahmed Khan. He is an ambassador with ADP List. He's from Lahore, and he's from the summer cohort. I'm Shadib Kazmi. I'm also an ambassador for ADP List, and I'm from Islamabad, but from a spring cohort. And our awesome speakers today include Hussein Diwani, who is a mentor at ADP List, and he's originally from Pakistan, but he is nowadays in Hong Kong, and he's working at Decathlon. Arif Kamal, he is a mentor as well. He's based in Karachi, and he's currently working at Pearls. And we have Arif Samad. He is also from Karachi, and he is from Airlift. So definitely very, very exciting lineup. So quickly, we can just take a picture. So if you all can just open your cameras, and we can just pose for a while and take a good picture, then we can just kick on the session. I'm just dedicating 30 seconds to this. So quickly open the camera and pose. Ahmed, what you can do is, like, when you're taking the picture, you can just give us a go ahead.
Yep, sure. I'm just waiting on everyone to turn their cameras on. Okay. Then
Okay.
let's give it a few more seconds. Okay, I'll be taking the screenshot now. Okay, everyone, smile. Just a sec. Yep, we're good to go.
Okay. Now that is done, let's go back to the session. So I'm just quickly hand over to our first speaker, that is Hussein Diwani. So Hussein, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself and go ahead with your session.
All right. Hey, everyone. Can you guys hear me correctly?
Yeah.
All right, great. Awesome. Thank you. Hi, I'm Hussein Devani. As Shahzad mentioned, I'm originally from Pakistan, currently based in Hong Kong. I'm a user experience lead at Decathlon in Hong Kong. By that, I actually worked on e-commerce websites, omnichannel commerce, for spatial design, for online purchases, etc. Previously, I was working and leading teams for startups, advertising agencies, and nonprofit. And I specialize in data-driven decisions and UX research and product improvement, and also more like a multi-channel experience. Before we begin, okay, hold on. I think the slides are not moving, Shahzad.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So yeah, so first of all, before we begin, like, we're talking about, like, let's talk UX, right? Like, I would really want to know for you, what is UX? Like, if you guys can just share that in the chat. What do you understand when we talk about UX or user experience? And yeah, no cheating, please, no Googling. Yeah. Human engineering or human GNGG. I'm not sure if I understand it correctly. Human engineering, yeah. Okay. Coming up with new features and testing them out. Human engineering, solving daily problems, behavior towards product and services. Yeah. What else? What else do we understand by this? Behavioral study and making solutions. Human psychology. Meaningful experiences through design. Awesome. By people, of people, for people. That's pretty nicely put, yeah. And setting the things in proper way. Awesome. Great, awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, all of you are correct. Um, there are different interpretations of user experience, but let's take a look at what actually, it means. Basically, what did Don Norman, the person we call it as like the father of user experience, mentions about it? So Don Norman calls it UX is all aspects of the end user interaction with the company, its service, and its products. Um, I think Shazab, you again lost me. Um, yeah,
Yep, we're on the first slide. What is UX? Okay, now there.
thank you. Yeah, so basically, yeah, what it actually means is that a combination of like service and products and like the end user interaction is exactly what user experience is all about. Um, when we also talk about user experience, we also think about some of the other things. I think, guys, you're not following me because I'm changing slides and I can't see anything.
I think what you can do is lights.
I
So
can,
I
I can,
think this is a
I
recurring
can,
thing.
I can share.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yep, great. Thanks. So user experience is a commitment in developing products and services with purchase, compassion, and integrity. But at the same time, when we talk about user experience, it's more about developing the relation with your user, understanding the problems, while also making sure that you have the full resources to be more feasible and viable for them, which means that you have the technology which can help you out in order to build the product, but at the same time, is that product financially sustainable for the business? Yes or no? And then you build the product. So that's what actually user experience means. In user experience, we talk about four key pillars. One is user research. The other one is research analysis. Um, and then after that, we have scope and execution. So what does actually research mean? So it's not just primary research or secondary research, but actually we have some other things like competitor research where we try to analyze what are the industry standards and what are the other people in the industry are doing about it. And then the next part is the research analysis, where we try to learn from the user. What do they think? What do they feel? What are the pain points for them? And using those understanding, we actually create insights and findings out of it. So what is the difference between a research and an insight finding? A research definitely is something that you have conducted and it's in a raw format, and making it useful for your business. It's what we call it as insights and findings. And then putting it on on the canvas, which can definitely define the experience for a user. That's what we call experience mapping or customer journey mapping. And then the next one we have scope, which is around the idea of ideation, which is coming up with different ways of solving that problem and brainstorming different ideas and picking the ideas which are the most relevant in terms of implementation. And then we come towards the point of prototyping and testing out that and iterating if the solution needs more improvements. The last part is execution, which is crucial because when we, as a UX designer, you can of course come up with multiple ideas, but how do you implement those ideas? How are you working on the stakeholder management? How are you collaborating with different people, with developers, with data scientists, and the business teams? That is also very relevant. And these are the people who will help you put your ideas to life. Yep. And then the last part that we talk about in in user experience is basically the common job titles. So a lot of people have different understanding about user job titles, and there are a lot of fancy names out there in the industry that you might come across. And the most common ones which you will see is a UX designer and motion designer, engineers, UI designers, researchers, interaction and designers, and information architects. So these are some of the most common ones that you would see. Right now, if you are looking for particularly roles regarding UX, these are some of the keywords that you can definitely use on LinkedIn or on some other job platforms where you can search for jobs. And attached to that, there are different understandings. So for a UX designer, they would be talking more about functional part, like the experiences and stuff like that. UI would be more UI, or like interaction designers would, and even like motion designers would be working on the visual side of it. Researchers, as you can tell, like are working on like getting that insight from the users, like understanding their pain points. And information architects are the ones who are going to put the right things in the right boxes for you. And the last is the UX engineers, which is a combination of development and design at the same time. Then we have like UX and customer experience and service design. So for you, so this is basically like the golden circle that we call it, right? So at the center we see user experience, where you understand the user, and like you do everything to make sure that like the idea is like that you're coming up with, like it fits the user needs. It actually tells like what kind of pain points the user has, and then you have the fulfillment for that. Customer experience, on the other hand, as we can see, like it is more about implementation and management of interaction across the customer journey. But at the same time, you try to like make sure that the user is going back with a positive feedback. And the last one, which we call it as a service design, is a systems approach. So which is basically more about what is happening at the front and behind the scenes. So as you might, if you guys have dived into the field of like technology, you might know, like when we talk about development, we have front-end development and back-end development. So front-end is what is the user-facing side, but at the same time, like there are some things which are happening behind the scenes, which are the back-end side. So service design, in the same manner, talks about what is happening in front of the user and what do we have to do in terms of processes at the back in order to make sure that this system is like smoothly being implemented. At the same time is covering all the user satisfaction points. Yep. And then we come toward the part of like transitioning into UX. That is my favorite topic because I myself have transitioned into user experience. So prior to being a UX lead, I used to be a filmmaker. That was my story in Pakistan. So in Pakistan, I used to be a documentary filmmaker. And for me, it was really interesting to like, learn the craft. So what I was doing at that time was working on storytelling, and that's what I wanted to do, and that was what I was passionate about. But at the same time, I wanted to see where I can make direct impact. So I was curious to learn more and like, getting to understand the user needs and telling the right story and like, solving the problems at the same time and making it impactful. So for me, like, I feel like, for a lot of people who are into their career, like, they're thinking like, oh, it might be very late for me to switch. I'm telling you, like, it's never too late to switch. It's basically like, never too late to transition. If there's something that you can like, find your passion in, or like, truly believe in, I think definitely go for that. Try to see what are the things that like, like wakes you up in the morning, right? Like makes you leave your bed, or like, makes you passionate about what you're doing, or like, something that you can keep doing and never get tired. So I think for me, like that actually where UX came into place, and I got like super passionate about user experience, and I transitioned to UX. And in order to do that, it's definitely a journey, it's a process, and it is not a overnight thing, right? Like, you need to put in some effort into that. So the first part which we talk about is learn the craft. So it would not happen like definitely like, some people are self-taught learners, and like, they can definitely go on like YouTube, some free resources, and like, they can definitely learn that. But find where you can learn it. Like, what is the most efficient way for you to learn? So the most common ones would be like going to the boot camps, online courses, formal education, real projects. For me, I did one online course. Honestly, I did not do like a lot of online courses. I did one online course through Acumen Foundation and IDEO. So IDEO is like one of the pioneers of event-centered design, and like, they talk like, about serving the people, creating service design. So for me, like, that was one online course which actually turned the wheel around for me. And yeah, and then I started doing more real projects, so collaborating with people like, my friends, and like, helping them out with the startups, Sometimes you even have to do the job for no money, like as a pro bono, as a volunteer. But this is all a learning curve, right? Like, this is your investment into learning and getting a real project. Then the next part, which is create a portfolio. So create a focus, then you have the 4-step process: the problem, process, product, and results. So try to understand what is the problem that you're working on. So when you create a focus on a problem, for example, what do you see around you, or what, as a user, what kind of things do you notice? Try to identify a problem, and then secondly, you can create a process. So that process could be conducting a research, empathizing with the user, understanding it, ideating the solutions, and then you actually build a product. So that's where then you start to see results into place. Then you see, what have I learned from that? Definitely, for me, the first product that I built never created any good result. It was actually a process where you build things, you fail, you learn, and then you move forward and you try to make things work around. And the last one is leverage your current career. Like whatever you're doing right now as a teacher, I don't know, like as a filmmaker, like for me, it was a filmmaker. So for me, it was more about staying at the core of storytelling and telling people stories. So understanding what is your current career and what can you take away from that, and using that, and then you pick industry specific projects. So for example, if you're a teacher, try to see what is there in the edtech industry. Well, how can you make it better? For example, if you're interested into Khan Academy or Udemy or edX or Coursera, what as a user would you want to improve in that? Or as a teacher, right? As a teacher, how can you improve or enhance a teaching experience, or from a university point of view, right? The next one is internal transfer. So whichever company you're working at, see if they're, how would you want to transfer? Talk to your managers. Is there anything that you can help with? And the last one is UX roles within the sector. So maybe in your own company, there might not be any active role, but on a parallel, you might see some other company which are working in the same sector as you. They have any open role. So try to see and try to find your fit there. So yeah, for me, these were 3 key things into transitioning into UX. And definitely it's a process, and it might not happen overnight, but once you take a lead, take a step forward, get your foot in the door, and that's where you start building things around. Yeah, that's it for me. Yeah, and then I'll move on to Arif Samad. Arif, I think you're mute.
Hello. So Hussein, you are controlling the slides, or may I share my slide?
I can do it for you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So hello, how are you all? Arif Samad here. I am working as a product designer in the Airlift technologies, and the fun fact is this: for the last 2 years, I am the only single designer in the Airlift technologies who is managing 8 different products, 8 different heads in the same company, including consumer apps, including mobiles, websites, internal apps, back office, etc. And at the same, like Hussein shared his experience, I came in the user experience industry from the background of graphic designing back in 2001. In 2004, I became as a web designer, because at that time web designer was a very, you can say, web designer job was a very hot in the market in the Pakistan. Then moving towards after the era of Web 2.0, I transitioned myself to UX designer, and now I'm working as a product designer. I work for a several different SaaS projects. I am, you can say, specialized in ride-hailing applications, to design experience of ride-hailing application in the warehouse apps, including 3PL, Next, Trackify, and other applications. So next, we are moving towards our next agenda, as Hussain's very deeply shared about what is the user experience and how we can what is the actual user experience and how you can start your career. So now we will know how user experience will help us and what it can do for us. So let's start. User experience cuts our you can say a development cost. Our designers our before UX designer spends hours and redesigning and posting on the polishing the apps to meet the needs of the user. So how it help us to cut down the cost by two things. One is the prototype, and the second is usability testing. How it helps us from the prototyping, like before going to the development, we test our ideas, we test our ideas in estimating our more accurately. We avoid our feature creep and test our application with the real users, either our proposed solution is working with the user or not, or user are using it with ease or not. And the second is usability testing helps UX designers to make sure that the app is convenient and easy to use. So we can check the various elements of during the testing, the size of the buttons, and easy to navigation, fonts, and etc. So it cuts out the development cost. It reduces our development cost before we push it to the development phase. So secondly, it increased over the revenue, but how the UX design proved that love at first sight really exists. A full 75% of people judge a website based on the overall aesthetics, a user-friendly interface, and fulfill a customer needs is more likely convert the customer. So how it increase our revenue by ease of use, reduce the clicks. As much as we give the leverage to the user to interact with the website, it will be the very enjoyable and joyful for them for the journey to visit our website or the apps. And the clear CTA, like if we are going to design login button, so the login button should be very clear, and if you are going to redirect them to somewhere like to register themselves or the forgot password, so that kind of CTA should be very clear and easy to readable. In the second, it helps us to increase user experience, help to increase our loyalty. Customer loyalty always one through the positive experience. One of the approach building the customer is creating a customer journey map. UX designers create the journey map to represent the customer's interaction with the product, starting from the very first contact, can help you to increase the loyalty of the visitors by helping them build empathy. Empathy, how empathy will help or increase the customer loyalty is empathy is understand the needs of the target of the audience. A well-crafted customer journey map reveals the emotional states of your user in different stages of their journey. I didn't how it increase our customer loyalty by you can say identify the bottlenecks when a user focus on issue when a user focus on an issue while trying to perform an action. For example, the website or the app doesn't accept any kind of you can say credit card, or the checkout process find a unnecessary element like a menu is hidden. So these interaction can turn them away from the website. So user experience help us in our ideation in a prototyping phase will help us to eliminate these kind of bottlenecks and increase in the retention rate. Retention rate is especially important for the e-commerce that allow the UX designer to track their activity, to track their customer interaction with the content, with determine the customer satisfaction ratings, gather usability scores. UX designer, the inside they need to optimize their, I can say, design to better engage visitor and win their loyalty. And the second is motivate your user to interact with your content. How it help us, or you can say how it user experience help us to motivate with the content that the first of all, when designing the app, UX designer meticulously create a user personas or description of the people who will the potentially target audience of that particular app or the particular website. The user persona look like you can see you like a simple profile of the real people and include the personal information, biographics, and the motivation of the user to use the app, why they want to use the app. User personas allow the user UX designer to get a better feel for their target audience. So it helps to it. So you can say. So it helps them to motivate to use that app again and again. And in modern and now I can say in the modern UX design, focus in the personalization user experience. Like most of the you guys have seen already seen in many e-commerce websites here, you like to get personalized greetings, like Facebook uses, Instagram uses, and other e-commerce website uses personalized greeting in their app. When you are using app in the morning, so they say the good morning, and when you are using the app in the night, the app will send you a message that, hey, Arif, good evening, how we can help you out. So these all kind of personalization motivates the user to use your app and engage them to experience your application and website. So the last one is keep you away from how UX help us to keep you away from you can say wasting the resources. When employer are not managed well, the result can be financial losses. An example of such misuse of resources of hiring marketing and the sales manager to promote a product without investing in the user experience that delight the user. Time is also valuable resources that directly impact the financial side of the project. So user experience will help you to use your resources wisely in their respective areas. As user experience research help you to detect the inefficient solution and prevent the implementation at the development stage by tailoring any feature to meet the needs of the users target audience. Marketers and analysts can try their best to predict the behavior of the users, but it is not possible to predict what your user want with the 100% certainty. Designing and capturing the UI and user experience to the difficult task. So Hossein, can you move to the next slide? Okay, so these now let me we see we will identify the few different you can say examples from the digital product or the user experience like simplicity. User experience, your app should be very simple, clear, and precise. In the design should be very clear, and information will be precise. Like you can see I have seen shown the example of the Sadape. Their home screen is very clear to the point. It's a greeting message. Hello, Aisha. They are showing the transition and very simple and easy to use. The second example we can take from you can say Starbucks. They personalize their screen. They shown the past purchases and the previous purchases, and you can the user can easily if they want to reorder the same thing, so you can easily reorder. You can easily reorder the particular product from their personalized from their previous purchase tabs. The second is the user wants the tracking of their order in the most e-commerce application and the ride hailing and the food delivery services. We most of the time see most of the user are not aware about their delivery and the product. So user wants the tracking of their order in the e-commerce. So tracking will help you user to identify and to notify them where your order is right now. Like in the Airlift, we are following the 3-step process to deliver the product. Once the order is confirmed, the second order is in the packing phase, and the third is the order in the delivery phase. So we always identify the user where your product is right now. So these are the few examples from the digital product design where the UX helps the user to engage, to motivate to use your application again and again. Okay, so the next topic would be, is UX is a good fit for you? So I personally feel that this question, you guys can very easily answer the question you are guys ask from yourself. Is really good fit for you? If yes, the UX design may be very good for you if you are very creative and analytical. There are not too many jobs out there that combine both the creativity and analytical thinking. If you want to be a career that incorporate both, UX design and the is the ideal meeting point. And the second, the decentrally, yes, this is a might seem like no barrier, but the words knowing that the UX designer tends to be well paid. There is for course variation depending on where you are working, what company you are working for, or what are you working in the junior, mid level, or a senior level. But very decent salary you can get by become a user experience designer. And the second is the job security. We all face these issues in our early days, in the mid days, but now the things are very changing rapidly, especially in the Pakistan. Most of the investors are investing in Pakistan for digital product development. Most of the startups are now ensuring that the job security in you can say in different sectors, but in especially in the user experience design. A survey carried by the Adobe, globally the survey carried by the Adobe, 87% of the managers said that hiring more UX designer is a top priority of the organization. Why? Because they know the user experience, the UX design is the only way to sustain, to survive, or only way to get the succeed of the to get the achieve the target of the goal of the product is to better user experience, is the better user experience. And the third and the fourth one is the branch out. What it means is that user experience is the only field where is within the UX design umbrella. There are so much you can do, from you can say from video game to mobile apps, from the virtual reality to the voice design. There are countless paths you can end up to. UX designer are expected to have specialized knowledge in the areas such as voice design, user research, front-end development, UX writing, UI interaction design, etc. So if you don't want to be tied to the to set of one field, and you like the idea of branching out, a career in the UX design is a full of the opportunity. And the second one, the fifth one is the going freelancing, which is a very favorite topic for all of the all of the our designers, because we want to earn more and more. So here's a good news for you guys. So if you are dream of one of working for yourself, or even working remotely and becoming a so-called digital name, so UX design is one career where you where this is not only completely possible but also fairly common. So UX design or UI design, interaction design, or as a UX researcher, you can freely working as a freelancer. Nowadays, the remote working is very common in all over the world. So UX, I personally feel that being a UX designer is the only field in the design industry other than the graphic design. You can work remotely, you can work work as a freelancer, and you can earn very decent amount by freelancing your UX expertise, especially in UX researching or usability testing. So you can earn a very decent amount. And the second and the last one is make a difference. So if you as a UX designer, you will be doing a meaningful work. How? Well, you are shaping the world around you and influencing and improving how people experience it Not only that, design has a direct impact on the business outcome. With the design data-driven companies outperforming their competitors by up to 200 plus percentage. UX designer have more power to create the world works better for you, the user, the full of spectrum of humanity. Being a UX designer, you are free to give your ideas. You have a very freedom to share your ideas, your thoughts. You are free to test your ideas with the user. You are free to test your user journey with the user to validate your ideas. Now, being a UX designer, if you want to be a great designer, there are three different kind of skill sets you have. Encompasses the variety of, we can say, as soft skills, industry skills, and the crossover skills. The soft skills means you must be a very good very good communicator, along with the empathy, curiosity, and the critical thinking. Because when you when you put yourself, or when you arrange empathy session, understanding session, or testing session with the user, so you have to be very empathized about the user. You have to be very good communicator at that time. And the second, the industry skills, you can say, learning user is how to do user research, UX writing, wireframing, prototyping, and the different tools like Figma, or you can say any other tool, XD. So these are your industry skill sets, will help you to get a better user experience design. And the last one is the crossover skills. Will take you to these skills will take time to learn, but if you keep an open and curious to mind a very kind of work you do, it makes the development easier. Like, the thing you are designing, or or the solution you are proposing to your team, it is easily convertible, and it is easily, you can say, adjust in your current product tech stack. So it can be, I can say, customer service. You learn some kind of coding, backend coding, like you can front end coding like HTML, CSS, and the web development, some basics. So it helps you to stand out in the crowd, and all the three skill sets will make you the best UX designer in the town, in your company, and in your industry. So that's all from my side. So over to you, Arif.
Hello guys. MS, are you taking over?
Yep. Sanjay, you can unshare the screen and I'll share mine.
Okay, so as the screen comes up, let me introduce myself. My name is Arif Kamal. I'm more commonly known as Arif Kamal Zeri. Uh, I've been in the industry for like 25 years or so. This is my 26th year in the industry. Been a very, you can say, old fellow in the industry. Joined it very young. My claim to fame has been that I've almost lived up to all the spectrums in the graphic design field. I've headed and worked in almost all streams because when we were young, we joined the industry. There weren't many companies, there weren't many roles. Usually, people with a single title used to do different roles as graphic designers, web designers, Arif already mentioned. So it was a learning opportunity. So I've been pretty blessed in terms of working with very big names and leading teams with them, eventually building very big teams. So I've transitioned into more management side of things and have had the pleasure of building some really large teams and pretty big names in the industry. So moving on, I'll be sharing some details about the landscape of the industry, how it is, what sort of jobs you can get, what sort of salaries you can expect, what are the industry types and what should you be doing in order to perform well in the UX industry within Pakistan. So we'll be looking at job prospects. I've prepared two graphs for you to view. These will be roughly going over the industry stats. These both of these are based on 3 surveys we did for different companies, and these surveys are obviously, they do not represent the 100% accurate picture, because in Pakistan most of the companies, the smaller companies, are not registered with any bodies, and people freelancing or working in smaller groups are not accounted for. So this might have like 10-20% deviation, but these are the stats. So since the UX industry is evolving in Pakistan, it's not completely evolved yet. So I would say that there's a lot of confusion in terms of the roles or the designation of the titles that we have. So for most of the data that we collected recently, we came across 5 roles. The highest used role within Pakistan is something related to UX engineering, which is our HTML, CSS friends who develop UIs that we build. Most of the jobs within Pakistan lie in the services and something called online design. I'll explain it a little bit later in the next few slides. So most of the jobs, which is around like 36%, lie in that spectrum, which includes some sort of development or some sort of work linked to development. There are certain companies which still hire people who do design and development both. Sadly, they have a very weird title, which is very debatable. UI, UX designer, or UX UI designer, or UX UI developer. So that those sort of people are like around 18%-ish, and the mostly those people work on the entire cycle. They do wireframe, they do prototype, they do design, they do the HTML, CSS, and mostly they're found in smaller companies or very large companies which are like product related. Both of them are blue because they include some sort of development work. I've color coded them. The third kind, which is one of the very popular JDs or titles in the industry, is our UI UX designer or UX UI designer. Some companies have started calling them visual designers because most of them are not involved in research. They're more involved in the ideation phase. So what they basically do is they are involved in like either a discovery workshop, they do wireframe, they do prototype, UI design, and then eventually do some sort of a handoff either with Zeppelin or with any other tool, sometimes manually. So this is another large chunk of percentage that you can look at in terms of job within the Pakistan industry. UX researchers, if we go like an year back, as Hussain Bhai was saying, and as Arif was also saying, that the landscape of products has developed in the last couple of years a lot. 2020, 2021, the later parts of 2019 saw a very intense boom in terms of product companies. So this number was fairly low, and a lot of people, when we were doing this research, came across and said UX research is 4%. That means that this is something that not, which is not growing, or probably not considered as a top career option. But this number has soared in the last couple of years very quickly. And currently, because the survey is like was done somewhere between 2020, a recent survey is in progress. We are working towards it. This number has grown towards like 12ish to 13. So it's seen like more than 200% growth. But the data is not compiled yet, so I cannot share that with you at this point. But this area is continuously improving as a job prospect. So for all the researchers out there, keep your hopes up. And last but not the least, as Arif already said, and Chenbai and all other people have already mentioned, product design scenario is improving, and so is the product designer job. There are a lot of positions open in terms of product design. A lot of companies are hiring product designers to scale, and usually a product designer is involved in some sort of research. They do definitely do the ideation phase and the execution phase, and they are sometimes involved in testing as well. So I've already shed like some decent light on that one. So can we move on to the next slide? So previously we were discussing the title wise or job wise prospects. Now we are looking at the picture in terms of the industry wide scenario. So primarily Pakistan or India, rather than we both are really close markets. So we have three type of you can say breakdowns within the industry. One being the online design industry, which is like growing leaps and bounds in terms of numbers, in terms of job prospects, as well as in terms of sales, in terms of companies starting and opportunities on all scenarios. So online design, freelance, small agencies basically make up around like 60-62% of the industry within Pakistan. Again, these stats were compiled somewhere in 2020. The number might be like 10 to 20% off. Salary in these sort of ranges between like, because these guys hire very fresh people or very young people, so they don't tend to give a very good initial salary, but as soon as you pick up pace, you spend like 6 to 8 months in a year, or probably 1.5 years, because all the companies offer increment twice a year. So this number like shifts really quickly. So usually starting salary in online design companies and other companies is fairly small. It starts from like 15-20,000 rupees, and as you grow, the number goes really high to like 500,000, 400,000, which includes usually very decent perks in terms of like the company maintained cars and like insurances and other stuff. So online design again makes up the larger part of the industry. The second largest part is obviously our software houses. We have seen companies that do different type of sales. Even in the big companies, we have like sub brand which sell like online design, like package-based design. So the area is a little gray, but primarily the second largest is our software houses, which the software company that we have, the bigger names like for example Temples, Fully Free, Systems Limited, Avanza, and people like that. These guys make up the center half. This is around like 30%. These guys usually hire visual designers and people who can do some sort of research, people who can conduct discovery workshops. So, to work in these sort of companies, you need to know a good set of skills from the UX umbrella to be able to work with them. Again, because these companies are a little bit bigger than the online agencies or online design agencies, so these guys pay up a really decent salary at starting point. From like fresh graduates coming out, you can expect a salary of like 35, 40,000, 45,000 starting point. And then the highest numbers can be debatable because there are like 12, 13 positions and the average is not good. But I've seen people earning decent salary up to 600, 700 Ks on average. Nowadays, because again these companies have like grown tremendously during COVID, and like uh, at the end of 2020 they saw like intense growth. So the third part is obviously products. Product companies are evolving again. The number currently that we see in the research that we guys are doing is a little bit higher than this. Product companies at now roundabout make up around like 7 to 8%. Again, because product is a sensitive part and the designer is a very essential part of the life cycle, so the salaries are a little bit higher. Young talent is given more opportunity because people are coming from well-rounded, well-versed background. The universities are teaching decent programs, especially in Lahore and Islamabad, Karachi as well, but the landscape of Lahore and Islamabad is a little bit bigger. And again, the salaries, because usually at times you are paid in USD or like pounds, depending on the native region of the company. So the amounts go a lot higher than what you would be getting at a higher management position within a SaaS company or an online design company. So as I said, the product is growing. It's like around about 7%. Was like around about 7% at the mid of like 2020, but it's growing at an extremely quick pace. A lot of companies are coming in. A lot of companies are securing investments. A lot of companies are making really decent products. I believe like a couple of people were here in the audience who are working for really decent companies and leading decent teams in the company. So please move on. UX as an industry, as I already shared, that it has like 3 different type of companies. The purpose of this slide is to, for all the people who are looking for a job, you have to prepare differently for a different sort of company. I'll be very quick in examples. For example, if you were aiming to work for an online design company or an agency which is based off freelance models, you have to have a very good visual design portfolio. You need to have good, decent visual design skills. If you're working for a SaaS based or software company, you have to have good visual design skills, but you need to have like intense communication skills, because usually you are directly communicating with the client. So you have to have like really good verbal communication skills. You have to have very good English communication skills to talk to clients. So that is a very important scenario. In terms of product, product is very dependent on what region it's based in. For example, you might be sitting in Pakistan or working for a product that is either based in US. So again, communication skills are there, but again, for being a product designer, you have to be really well versed in terms of the entire umbrella of UX design, from like prototyping, from researching, from gathering specifics, as Hussein mentioned. You have to be really well versed to secure a good position and then progress into your career. So next slide, please. So how to succeed? 5 really simple points. Understand the industry and prepare your portfolio accordingly. If you are aiming for an online design company, you would have to have a really nice finished portfolio of visual design. If you're aiming for a product company, you have to have like really decent case studies. If you're aiming for someone like a SaaS company, you have to have a really decent mix of both. Uh, Again, whatever company you're aiming for, you have to share your process, how you work, because in an interview, a lot of people are not interested in what you finished, because usually people do not people who are working in teams use work that is not entirely their own. So sharing a process makes the interviewer very comfortable, like how you work, would you fit into the pipeline of the company or not. So that those sort of things are very important. So share your process. A decent project should have a problem statement, proposed solution, journey towards solving the problem, and the final results. I've seen a lot of portfolios. I do a lot of hiring. I've been blessed with building teams of more than 100, 200, 300 designers at some point in my life. So I've seen a lot of people. People usually define a problem statement. People define the journey. By journey, I means like you showcase wireframe, you showcase visual designs. A lot of people do not share their proposed solution and the final results, that the impact that their solution made. So try and think of what sort of impact your designs made, what sort of value you added in terms of revenue, if possible, or ROI, or in any other manner, so that that impact can be shown. The fourth one is that prepare a portfolio of at least 2 to 3 projects, which I like to call well-defined projects, which has like all the 4 areas that we're talking about. Focus on quality, not on quantity. When you are giving an interview doesn't have that the liberty of time that he would review your entire like 50 project portfolio. So usually 3 or 4 or 5 maximum, that's a decent number. But if you have like 3 projects, that's enough to show variety and show your process. And the last one, that's a little bit of a cheating part, but it has to be said out loud. In portfolios, usually there's something called aesthetic usability effect, which means the prettier the things look, you usually supersede solutions that you actually did. So try and make your portfolio pretty. I'm not in favor of like a lot of dribblification of designs, like make them too pretty to implement, but make it as dribbly as possible. but do think of execution somewhere in the middle. And there's a little point written below, which I like to emphasize on, that good communication skills are mandatory to have for any type of designer, whether it's a UX designer or a visual designer or whatever type of, because you are communicating with people on regular basis, and in majority of companies and majority of roles, you are the underdog, so you have to uh, communicate really well with the teams to make your presence felt, to show the value that you are going to bring to the table. And again, because we are in a world which is driven by outsourced work, so again, verbal English speaking skills are like uh, can exponentially boost your career. So focus on learning English, focus on improving your communication, focus on trying to present things in a positive way, so that people can love you and like to want to be a part of you, want to be like a part of the team that you're in. So that's very important. Ahmed? Thank you, guys. I think Ahmed, you're on mute.
Yep. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. So can you guys view the slides again? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see the slides.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we'll be moving towards the last segments of our session, and I'd like to thank our speakers for taking out the time and the effort that they've put into the session, and also the attendees for making their first Pakistani ADP list session such a success. And now I'm just like gonna give you guys about 20 to 25 seconds if you guys want to take a screenshot of this page. So even if you missed out on some part of the session, or maybe you just got disconnected in between, so you can just like take a screenshot of this slide to catch up with the major takeaways and tips from our speakers. So I'll just give you guys about 15 to 20 more seconds and you can take a screenshot, and then I'll move on with the rest of the slides. Okay, so I think we're good to go now. Okay, moving on. Okay, I cannot emphasize enough on the significance of obviously having a good enough circle and networking, because trust me, networking and connections can take you to places. And you also learn a lot from your seniors as well, right? So Shazeb will be sharing the links to the LinkedIn profiles of our mentors and our speakers from the session in the group chat, and you can like connect with them on LinkedIn anytime you want, and hopefully that will be beneficial for you in the near future as well. So Shazeb, if you can please just share the links, then okay, I'll be moving on to the next slide. Plus, yep, if you want to remain updated with any of the upcoming events or sessions, whether it be Pakistan specific or from all around the world, then you can definitely join the ADP List design community on LinkedIn. And trust me, it's a really happening place, and you don't want to miss out on all of the stuff that you might come across if you're in that. So yeah, I guess that would be a wrap for now. And now we'll have a dedicated time slot of about 10 to 15 minutes for our questions and answers. And the floor is all for the attendees. And Shazib, you might want to take over from here. And like, if there are any questions, and if there have been any questions in the chat previously, so like we'll just shoot away with them. And yep, I'll just unshare my screen. And Shazib, maybe you can take over from now.
Sure. Thanks, Ahmed, and thank you all for the speakers. Amazing, amazing insights. I learned a lot. And so we have a few hands raised, and in the chat, some people were excited to engage one-on-one in Q&A. So I think we can first go ahead with Usman Ghani. So if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. Myself is Usman Ghani, and I'm working as a project manager at PNC Solutions, Pakistan. So, before moving forward, I would like to thank each and everyone out here, each and every mentor who produced their insights regarding each and everything, regarding their experiences, a good hands-on on multiple things. Moving forward on one thing, I have a quick question with Mr. Arif Kamal, just to get a bright insights on things. Could you please just explain that how we can maintain a good portfolio in terms of design aspects, and what will be the major KPIs for that? How we can earn the return of investments with respect to UX?
Maintaining a design portfolio, one is that obviously you have to stay up to whatever the industry is doing, the type of finishes that are there. You can always follow international designers. You can always follow, you can say, bigger agencies, for example, like Fantasy, like NetGuru, people like uh, Infinix Studios. There are a lot of studios on Behance and Dribble that you can follow in terms of visual design. And as for ROI, you need to get involved into the business side of things and post-launch details of the project to get those sort of insights. In services companies or in companies like PNC, it is a little bit difficult because agents are dealing with the clients, not the designers. So it's a little bit difficult to get those sort of insights. But you need to, for example, if you're working on a brand, if your brand is doing really well, if you are selling really well, you are achieving your targets, that means you are doing something right in terms of the visuals that you have produced for the brand, or the UX you have produced for the brand. So those sort of things are important. See if you have done a major change, or the landing page has done a major change in improving the leads of the company, or the overall you can say sign up ratio of the company. Those sort of things that you can pick up and use within your portfolios to share story about the success of your process, or the success of the overall user experience you build for a specific brand.
Thanks a bunch for this. It will be really helpful for us, because majorly we what we do is we are quite intense in terms of using multiple tools and techniques. For example, what my perceptions are as being a project manager or anything, you work on balsamic for wireframes, you work on XD designs, you work on overcloud, you work on multiple tools and techniques. We have Figma
Yeah.
and everything, right? So what I think, these tools and techniques can be reduced somehow in terms of design aspects, so we can come up with a good UI perspective scenarios in terms of product or anything like that. We use multiple things up together, so we should come up with a short term in terms of tools and techniques.
Yeah, in my opinion, tools do not matter that much. You should have a simpler pipeline. For example, for whatever discovery workshop you're creating or research mode that you have, it's better to use a single tool. For example, I've like relied on Miro for a while, but you can use anything that's comfortable. For a design tool, Figma, XD, or like any modern tool is good enough. Something that like you can say encompasses the entire pipeline from prototyping to from wireframe to prototyping to design to the handoff, everything in a single application. So that's good. Uh, Keep it simple. It's easier to manage things that way. And on the other hand, keep an eye on whatever is changing. If you have like Google Analytics, try and take some sort of account on your end, so that you can monitor progress of whatever you're doing. That would be really helpful. Say hello to Umar for me.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. So thanks, Usman, for that question. The next on queue is Shravan Kumar. Do you have a question?
Sure, sir. So, hi everyone. So, my name is Shravan Kumar. Let me introduce myself. My name is Shravan Kumar PS, and I'm speaking from Kerala, in India, South India. So, first of all, thank you everyone for your greatest insights. It will be really helpful for a newbie like me. I'm a complete newbie to the whole concept of UI UX design, because I have just completed a course in Figma and I'm trying to build everything from the scratch. trying to get into all those kind of discussions everywhere happening in ADP list. I just joined here for the past 1 week, and this is my second group session. So it's been a great time. I had a great time with you all. So all your insights is really helping me to gather information about all the concepts about UI and UX design. And I'm really passionate about this. I have both and doing something reaching into creativity, which I want for a long year back. So right now I'm on it, and I'm here. It's been helpful. So what I want to ask you is that for a newbie like me, what resources we have to follow to be a better person
Shravan,
in yeah.
you are breaking up a bit, so maybe you can write your question in the chat, and I can move on to the next question because we are short on time. Okay, so just place your question in chat and we'll get to it. So next on the queue is Muhammad Ahmed. You can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, since you said we're short on time, so I won't waste time on my introduction. I'll get straight to the question here. The question I have is about the idea of UX in general. A lot of the efforts that we're doing is to push businesses in putting the user first. So do you think that a world where businesses run solely to help the user instead of, I mean, sure, of course, money would still be there, but that a world where money isn't the primary objective of any said business, rather than helping the user is. So do you think that a world like that can ever exist in a realistic scenario?
Yeah, I think I can take that question. Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, like, you need to see what exactly is the business is about, right? Like, and the business are not just built in the air. They need to have some substance behind it, and the substance is basically what problem are you solving for the people. So if you would go back to the core design principles, which is basically around the desirability. What is the desire to, like, create a product or to create a business, right? And like that is the core. And if you're not fulfilling that core, then there's no point of starting a business, or there's no point of like building a product. User first, yes, of course. Like, I think it has always been that. And then you think about, like, what kind of people would you need in order to like, fulfill that desire. So user experience comes into the place where they try to validate that assumption, they try to validate that idea, and then based on that, we then think about, like, what could be the possible solution for that, and do we have enough resources to build that solution? Yeah. If that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cool. So next on queue is Gao Fang.
Hello, hi. I have a quick question on, because I'm also very new to this, and I'm going to work with some Eng and PM on a brand new product, and it's my first time. I want to know, is there any pitfall or things that you think that might make you fail in terms of working with Eng and PM? Like, what are the something to avoid and some good advice to do or not do when you're working with them?
I think some of the key things were already mentioned during our presentation in the last the top points that we mentioned, right? Like, it is more about, like, things that you should do is definitely, like, try to learn about the user as much as you can. Like, that's where we talk about the deep dive exercises that we do, like, in order to talk to the users and understand them. And sometimes, like, we come to a possibility of, like, where do we see the innovation? Because if we are talking about the innovation, then maybe, like, the user might not know about that problem. So what you try to do is that you try to think beyond the box. What is the core problem and the solution that you try to innovate upon it? That's the first. Things that you should not be doing. You should not consider yourself as a user or your teammates as a user. What a lot of times happens is like, the teams, when they want to validate an assumption or like, conduct a user research, they try to do it internally within the teams, which is a worst practice that you can follow in order to like build a solution. Like right before the session, I was having a call with my mentee, and like she asked me the question regarding card sorting, which is the most common exercises in the user research and building an information architecture. And she asked me like, is it okay if I like do this card sorting with my team, because like we are building this product for the first time. And I was like, no, or do you have to see who is the target audience or who is the user that you're trying to serve. So yeah, the worst that you can do to yourself is like like stay within your own bubble and not go beyond that. So two things. First, try to like reach out to the right user, and then try to understand the user. What are the problems, and for solution, then you can innovate. Yeah.
I would like to add something to that. Might be helpful for the rest of the people who are listening to this conversation. Uh, just before this call started, we were talking about the quality of solution with some people, and again, people who are considering themselves as UX designers are basically providing a solution to a problem that exists in the world. So, first of all, as Hussein said, that you have to look for the user, then you have to also look at the type of resources that you have to provide the solution. At certain times you think of a very ideal situation, but you don't have the resources to pull it off. So my advice would be to obviously look at the user, perceive or rather understand the problem properly, come up with a solution that is executable, and iterate it in a way that it improves over time. Nothing is perfect out of the box. So don't think of a perfect solution. Think of a way which is the simplest way to solve the problem, and then iterate towards a better quality solution.
Thank you. I think my question, sorry, maybe I didn't clarify, is how do you internally, some of the things that you should avoid when you work with your engineers and your PMs?
Two things, because engineers are very tech savvy. So whenever you're designing a solution, try, for example, if you're designing a dashboard and you're using some sort of graphs, take some time out, think of components or things that are actually there. For example, in terms of graphs, we use a lot of high charts and something called aim charts. So think of ways that are easier for them to implement, so they would listen more to you and think that you know what they are doing, so they would understand the whole situation better. And when you come up with a solution that has a different path than theirs, then they would obviously know that you're coming from a better technical background, so they would respect your opinion a little bit more. In terms of PM, try and focus more on timelines than the actual solution, because a PM's core responsibility is to execute whatever he's given to execute within a specific amount of time. So try and stay time focused. Don't spend a lot of time sharing smaller details with PMs. That's not something that works out well in the end. So stay on top of the solution, summarize your stuff well, and for developers, you have to stay technical. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, perfectly. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So next question is from Taha Said.
Taha Sayed. Hi.
Yeah.
That's okay. So yeah, my name is Taha Sayed, and I've been working with Source Code Technologies for the past 1 year as a senior digital brand executive. And I have been primarily focusing on, taking the name of the company to newer heights. Obviously, for a company to be around for 6 years and not to be known as some of its other counterparts is a little worrisome, especially for the stakeholders. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I was brought in, to make sure that we're, at least out there known as other companies are. And being in the company for, being in the market for 6 years definitely means that the products that they are selling is definitely working for them. And so my question already was posted in the messages. I just wanted to have a better understanding because I believe Hussein was sharing his slides and he had a chart where he was talking about how you're, focusing on user experience, product experience, and service experiences, and I felt that it really is pretty much connected to a very large extent to what a brand and what branding is all about as well, right? And I was also I'm always hyped up about following people who are there in the market, as perhaps not, if not the founders, but one of the first people to lay foundations to a particular industry like user experience. And to hear names like Don Norman was a revelation for me, because there are other people out there, obviously in the branding aspect, which I'm well aware of, but to know about someone who's in the market, who's renowned, the way that you said he is, was something that was quite inspirational as well. Definitely something to look up to. So yeah, coming back to my question. I asked about a brand integration when you're mapping out a particular user experience for a product or service, or even if you're looking at a company, and you're trying to enhance their experience, user experience, and anyone who's going to be interacting with that particular company would obviously be categorically, if I'm not mistaken, falling in a user experience bubble. And I just wanted to see if you have any answers to how you see brand integration in user experience, or is it completely different? If Arif and Hossein could, answer this question.
Do you want to take this, Hussein bhai?
Sure. Thank you so much, Arif. I think for me, so I come technically from a brand background as well. So along when I was working in Pakistan in the advertising industry, I was doing creative, so both like film and brand at the same time. So yeah, brand can definitely be integrated into user experience. So when we talk about brand, we need to see what is the scope that we're talking about. Are we talking about the look and feel, the tone, the values that we bring in terms of in terms of value proposition that we're talking about. So definitely we need to see how are we going to integrate it. So first of all, you can integrate it in a way to see what is the look and feel in terms of UI, and in terms of UX, you need to see what kind of values are you bringing to the customer. So when you're creating your a company's brand, you think about what are the customer touch points that I want to cover, right? You can use all of that when you're defining the user experience. So that could be ease of access to something. Like for example, when you talk about McDonald's, it is more about convenience of finding the fast food really quickly and ordering very quickly in their kiosk. So that is all of that is part of the process. And even for instance, if we talk about this ride sharing app, which can be Uber, for them the value proposition would be making transport accessible to the many. That is their value proposition. So for them, that will be what can I do in order to make sure the functional part of it and the user experience part of it makes it accessible for a user. For me, that would the brand integration. So you need to see the brand values that you want to deliver and what kind of functional values that you want to execute for a user experience.
Great, thanks.
Very cool. So I think with respect to time, we can take one or two more questions. So so the people who have their hand raised, they can maybe post their questions in the chat so that we can record them. And in the meantime, we have Gulsher Ali next on queue. So you can unmute and ask your question. And also refer to the mentor you want to pose your question to. Gulsher Ali.
Assalamualaikum everyone. First of all, thank you very much for this knowledgeable session. Basically, I'm not from the industry. I used to be in the industry, but currently I'm teaching in the university. So my question is not for any specific. I just want to take a stance of people from the industry regarding the user experience research. I have seen that there's still a huge vacuum in the industry regarding using the devices like eye tracker, electroencephalography, for doing the user experience research. You know, I just wanna take a stance from you people why there is a gap. And the second question is there any industry or in the Pakistan and that have R&D cell doing user experience research using these tools? And the third one is, will this gap overcome in future?
Can I take this one?
Yeah, anyone, it's open for everyone.
Okay. First of all, I've shared the industry demograph with the slides that I presented. The industry is dominated by smaller companies in terms of size, and the smaller companies usually do not invest a lot of money in research, and the mid-sized companies are yet to realize the potential of UX. They are working toward it. So some companies have a budget, some companies don't, and product companies are creeping up really fast. As we mentioned that last year they were like 7%, this year they're around between 12 to 18%. So the product companies are usually more focused on research and invest a lot of money, because the success of their product is reliant on the fact that if they studied their user well or not. So as far as research cells are concerned, there are certain companies who started investing in UX. For example, the company that I work for has something called 10P Labs that invest in new projects, the new methods to do research. I'm aware of other companies who have invested some money in research cell. So things are getting better. I do agree with you that there's a vacuum. I'm a teacher myself in a university. So I do agree with the fact that there's a huge vacuum that needs to be filled. But to do that, people like me, people like Arif, people like Hussain need to step up and educate people around them. And this is why this event is happening. This is why we've started like participating in events to make people aware that why research is important and why we should study our users to like gauge and gain a higher level of success. So I do agree. Very few companies are doing that, and we should appreciate more.
Perfect. So I think we can now have our last question of the session. And the next on queue is Izhan Sheikh. Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. My question could be answered by any of you following. And the question is, why aren't we localizing the whole perspective of UX in Pakistan? सवाल कुछ यूँ है कि हम उसको लोकल क्यों नहीं करते थे जब it's for people, by people and to people. तो हम पाकिस्तान में इस इंडस्ट्री को लोकलाइज क्यों नहीं करते? जिस तरह आपने सारी स्टैटिस्टिक्स दिखाई थी, तो हमें वही प्रोसेस को फॉलो करने हैं, तो हम इसको ज़रा लोकलाइज क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? और हम अभी तक गूगल डिजाइन स्प्रिंट क्यों नहीं फॉलो कर रहे हैं? Why we are following Airlift design sprint or 10 12 design sprint? Why we aren't localizing?
अच्छा, 10 design sprint or Airlift design sprint दोस्त नहीं होती कोई चीज. Basically, in services companies, there's a hybrid model that is being followed, and people usually don't do that. A lot of companies work on the agile mode. That agile mode does not support sprints or design thinking well enough. A lot of people are unconsciously following agile UX or lean UX models. So ek masla, that's something, because services industries dominate in terms of financial, in terms of opportunity. So that's the reason. In terms of localizing, yes, we are trying to make an effort, but this is a huge change in terms of what it's going to do for the audience, what it's going to do for the resource pool of Pakistan. So it's going to take time. A lot of people are working towards it. A lot of people are trying to localize the processes, the you can say the roles, so that we can utilize the resource pool better. But again, since sadly we are working for an industry that is primarily dominated by outsourced work, so it's going to take a lot of time. Arif, do you want to add something? Airlift design process.
Well, related to the process, that every company, either they are service from service industry to product industry, they have designed their own processes for their you can say ease of use. Like if you're talking about the Airlift, that we have designed our process as per our requirement. So most of the time, Google design sprint or Google the double diamond model or IDEO design system may not work, may not fully work in our different kind of scenarios. And most of the time we alter our process as per the requirement of the feature set, or as per our requirement of you can say a product. So we cannot localize, you can necessarily we can localize, or we cannot make a standard tag in Pakistan. All of the design industries or design agencies or the product industries must follow these process. These process, I can say these processes are just for the recipe, they give us the recipe of 5 different kind of steps or 4 kind of different of steps, and then every company took their recipe and cook their own process. So I don't think so localizing the process or localizing any kind of UX design standard will help or will boost the design industry in the Pakistan.
Yeah, to add that, I don't think, as Arif said, that there's going to be a one process in terms of localization. We were talking about it just like a couple of days back. Azan, you were part of the debate as well. That there are 3 different industries that we need to cater to. One is obviously the product side of things. We could have a process in the future which would like encompass a really well-defined, localized way of working. We could have one process for the software industry of Pakistan, for example, all the SaaS companies or the software houses or the software companies, development houses, whatever you need to call them. We can have a process for online design agencies. I've been working on a process for a while. I've like spent like a decent 9 years in the industry on that front. I've tried to like advocate a decent process. Things are getting better, but again, as newer companies start to step in, it's difficult to go teach them, talk to them. I was just mentioning that the data we were collecting for the research is like around, it deviates around like 10 to 20%. That's a huge number as for the deviation of a data that is collected from a single source, which is PACB. So it will take time, but processes will establish. Industries have a tendency to mature over the period of 20, 30, 40 years. UX is fairly new. It's hardly like 5 to 6 years that it has been there, and then the popularity has picked up over the past 2 or 3 years. It will take time. Does it answer your question, Azam?
Yep, it does.
We can talk over it over a cup of tea if you want to.
Definitely. Looking forward for that as much
Yeah,
as
and you can definitely do that on AWS itself. Arif is a mentor there.
Yeah, virtual cup of tea.
Yeah.
Izan is a mentor himself.
Ah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that would be the last question for this session. Again, thank you all for staying over time, but we definitely need to respect our speaker's time. Just to give you a bit of context, it's midnight for Hussain Bhai, so those would be the questions. I have shared the LinkedIn group in link in the chat, so do join that to for the answers to the questions. And yeah, that would be all from my side. Thank you for joining the session.
Thank you everyone for coming. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye bye.